Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sabir, and I direct events here at the Strand. Before we launch into tonight's discussion on women and soap operas, I'd like to share a bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by the Bass family over on 4th Avenue's Book Row, stretching from Union Square to Astor Place. Book Row gradually dwindled until after 93 years, the Strand is a sole survivor, now run by third generation owner Nancy Bass White. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers and authors, we wouldn't be here today. Tonight, we are excited to have with us Robin Wasserman to lead a discussion on women in soap operas. Robin is the author of Girls on Fire, an NPR and BuzzFeed Best Book of the Year. She's a graduate of Harvard College with a master's in the history of science. She lives in Los Angeles, where she writes for television. Her new book, Mother, Daughter, Widow, Wife, is a psychologically riveting novel centered around a woman with no memory, the scientists invested in studying her, and the daughter who longs to understand. Joining Robin for tonight's discussion are Jenny Han, Finola Hughes, Nancy Lee Grahn, and Kimberly McCullough. Jenny Han is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of To All the Boys I've Loved Before series, and she is an executive producer on all 3 Netflix films, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, To All the Boys, P.S. I Still Love You, and To All the Boys Always and Forever, Lara Jean. She's also the author of the New York Times bestselling Summer I Turned Pretty series. Her books have been published in more than 30 languages. A former librarian, Jenny earned her MFA in creative writing at the New School. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. Excuse me. Finola Hughes is an English actress, television host, entrepreneur, author, and dancer, best known for her role as Anna Devane on the ABC soap operas General Hospital and All My Children. Her portrayal of Laura in the 1983 film Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. Nancy Lee Grahn is an American actress known primarily for her work in daytime soap operas, portraying Julia Wainwright Capwell on Santa Barbara from 1985 through 93, and Alexis Davis on General Hospital since 1996. Kimberly McCullough is an American actress, television director, and dancer. She's best known for her role as Robin Scorpio on the soap opera General Hospital, a role which she originated at the age of 7. McCullough is also an ABC Director Fellow, shadowing other directors. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Robin, Jenny, Nancy, Finola, and Kimberly to the stage.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank the panelists so much for coming and doing this event for me. A total stranger to most of them, who just sent an email kind of begging them to come and do this event, which is my dream come true. So I'm super appreciative to them. I'm super appreciative to all of you who are out there watching this on your screens and presumably like me, pretending we're all in one place. I'm just gonna sort of explain why we're even having a conversation about soaps that is ostensibly themed to this this book that I'm very excited just came out this month. And then I'm gonna kind of open up the floor to the people that you're really here to hear from, and we're hopefully gonna have a very exciting conversation about women and soap operas and roles for women and all of that. I have been working on this book, Mother, Daughter, Widow, Wife, for several years. It's a novel about a woman who has temporary amnesia and has to kind of rebuild a life from scratch, and about all of the women around her studying her, but also like struggling with their own lives as they kind of lose the roles that have tethered them to who they are. So it's about a daughter who's lost her mother, it's about a wife who's lost her husband, and it's about, at the center, this woman who's lost her memory. And I thought, rather than kind of bumble through an explanation of why this book is also about soap operas, I'm gonna read a couple paragraphs from it. Lizzie watched the soap first because her grandmother watched, and because here occasionally were adults in a feverish sexual disarray that both repulsed and intrigued. Here eventually was where Lizzie discovered the monstrousness of love, long before her mother enacted it. Here was where Lizzie found a world more comprehensible than her own, a reality that bent to the exigencies of narrative desire. The soap world was karmically rigid, secrets inevitably revealed, wrongs avenged, innocence redeemed, but physically malleable. Wives became entirely different women. An announcer would inform the audience of the substitution, and life proceeded accordingly. It had comforted her, the daily constancy, the implication that all women were in some sense the same woman, behavior differentiated only by their position on a rotating cycle of fundamental drives: lust, duty, vengeance. The women on the show lived in real time, enduring one day and then another and another. Happy endings ended, tragic ones too. Almost everyone came back from the dead. That Tuesday, she watched a woman weep bedside, waiting for her lover's coma to end, not knowing that when he woke, it would be with a new face and emptied memory. This was the risk of life inside a soap. The possibility you could wake up to find yourself someone else. Lovers' faces became unrecognizable. Children changed a decade overnight, and yet the circle of life closed in on itself. Every daughter became a mother, every mistress a wife, every wife a widow. The binary of womanhood, tending or pining, life a steady ping pong from one to the other, and inevitably back again. So that, I mean, I think that probably, thank you.
Wow.
Well, that I think offers the sort of official intellectual explanation for why I wanted to have this event. The personal explanation is that I have been watching soap operas since my aunt introduced me to them when I was 12. And I've been watching General Hospital specifically since my best friend from high school got me hooked in high school. And she and I have been kind of tag team watching it ever since, which has been now an embarrassing number of decades. But it has been for us this sort of narrative thread of our friendship. And as I started writing this book, I just got really into this idea of soap operas as a thread between generations of women, and as both a way of sort of portraying mothers and daughters and the relationships between them, and grandmothers and mothers and daughters, but also a way of kind of tethering those women to each other. And when my book tour got canceled due to plague, my publisher suggested I come up with some kind of dream event that I could do online, and that is when I cast my emails out into the wilderness. And I am just so excited, and also embarrassingly, a little fangirly that I'm pretending not to be, to have these three actresses from General Hospital here, and also my very good friend and super best-selling author Jenny Han, with whom I originally bonded, I think, the first time we ever hung out. Once we decided we might actually like each other, we originally bonded over our like secret love for General Hospital, and the fact that we spent all this time watching soap operas, even though that is often something that is often something.
Don't be ashamed. It's why we have jobs. Literally.
So yeah, I want to talk all about that stuff. And I think I want to start by asking you all, the three of you who are on the show, you've all sort of in some ways grown up on this show. I mean, Kimberly literally started as a child and grew up on it. And the other two, I know you've been sort of on and off for decades. So like through all these life cycles in your own life. And Jenny, I know you started watching also a long time ago when you were at a very different place in life. So I would just love to hear from all of you, what has growing up on soap operas or growing up watching soap operas, sort of, how has that shaped like the ways you think about the roles of womanhood? Like growing up as somebody's daughter on a soap opera, or becoming a mother on a soap opera, or watching these portrayals of adult womanhood when you were still sort of imagining what they would be like. How did it shape the ways you thought about what it was possible to be as a woman? And
go for it, Kimberly.
Anyone could start, yeah.
Now, can you see my wheels turning?
Yes.
Well, the first thought that comes to mind is that Robin did everything before Kimberly. Robin had sex before Kimberly. Robin got married before Kimberly. Robin had a child before Kimberly. So I was lucky that my character was a sort of hero. So she became a doctor. She had a career, so I always had this fictional character that basically felt like half of me to look up to and to challenge me to grow up. And in many instances, it was uncomfortable. For example, the sexuality part, that was something that my character had to explore before I was really ready to. And it happened to be a storyline where Robin's boyfriend, Stone, had AIDS, and Robin contracted HIV. And so just the act of exploring that storyline and doing research really forced me out of my La Mirada bubble that I was in. I was going to set and working, so I had that. I wasn't completely sheltered, but I was very protected by all of the people around me. And that story just sort of opened up my entire world. And I was able to, I guess, see my privilege in like a very searing way as a young person. So, all that to say, I have my character to thank for sort of like nudging me out of my comfort zones. And then, of course, Robin has been a daughter, a mother, a wife. Have not been a widow, but both of my parents died and came back to life. But I haven't had amnesia, but I have come back from the dead.
And you're the only one who's ever played the character of Robin Scorpio, right? I feel like
I never stopped, which is, again, it just lends itself to like all the awkward moments, ages. I was right there on television. I mean, I remember when I had like mosquito bites for boobies and they were like stuffing my bra, and I was like, but there's nothing there yet. It was interesting to be, like I said, sexualized in a way that I wasn't necessarily ready for in my real life. But thankfully, Robin was really smart and heroic and all of those wonderful things, and I didn't have to just, walk around being sexy. That would have been boring.
Robin, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, listening to what you've written, Robin, is just so extraordinary about how women replace women and actors replace actors. And also the sort of cycle of being a woman, how we, like, certain aspects of our life dies and we move on. And I had a friend, we were both like 32 or 33, and we were at a dance one time, and she spun across the room in a skirt that sort of flared out. And when she reached me, she was like, oh my God, did you see? Nobody looked. It's done. We're done. And we were like 32, 33 in Hollywood. And I was like, oh my God, we're done. It's over. And it is. And now I'm on the soap, I'm the level when I first started, I would look at these crones and I would think, oh my God, and I would be waiting for like beautiful, wise words. And now I'm in that seat. And I have to say, the thing I learned from being young is that everything an older actress says to you is gold. And so it's so lovely to be able to just offer, like, scads of bullshit that I might have, somebody might be interested in. And it's this sort of cyclical thing, and you live it out, as you say, day by day. We are, you know, on, and we're living these lives, and we come to our problems honestly, and we get through them honestly in a sort of day by day manner. And I thought it was so accurate what you wrote, and it is apropos women's lives. And this kind of replacing thing is sort of very interesting to me, because we get replaced on television and we get replaced in life. It's just fascinating what you've hit on. I really love it. Anyway, that's
Well, three of you guys are the only ones who've played your roles, right?
right.
I've been on 2 soaps. One was Santa Barbara, and
Oh, right. Yeah, I watched that.
and I played a character all the way through, and both Santa Barbara and General Hospital. And the way I would describe growing up on soaps and how it affected my womanhood is that Santa Barbara grew me, and General Hospital grew my daughter. So Santa Barbara, there was this writer, and it very much matters who's writing you, and the head writer's focus and view of a woman, and in particular the woman you're playing. But this one writer, Patrick Mulcahy, put the most beautiful words in my mouth that enabled me to say and feel all the things that I wish that I could say and feel in real life, but I didn't have the clarity to articulate. And he was extraordinary and able to elucidate aspects of me, and aspects specifically of me as this woman growing that I wasn't even aware of. It sort of paralleled my life in ways that I wasn't expecting. And he was able to craft and layer and create these complex, tortured, passionate relationships that I was having outside of the soap, as well as within the soap. And because of the way he told the story and how he told me that I could get through it, I could walk through it into the other side of it faster than I would have in real life, similar to what Kimberly said. So my life, as it turned out, you know, became the soap, and I lived it out on TV. So General Hospital, I mean, even as far as to say that the character, my father on the show was an alcoholic, and my father in real life was an alcoholic. And I, at that age, at that time, wasn't able, it put me in my mother's role. So in another generation of a woman, to feel her way. I was able to feel my way through things as a woman that I was old enough to do. I just didn't know how to do. General Hospital, when I say raise my daughter, it provided me, I was pretty good at paying attention to my life as I was living it, making lots of mistakes and taking notes, so that by the time I got to General Hospital, I had a better sense of myself. So it really provided this place for me to raise my daughter, you know, this lovely living and a place to
Gorgeous daughter, by the way.
Thank you. All of our kids are we're so lucky. But you know, a single mom that could go to work and bring my baby to work and bring the nanny to work to watch, and I not, you know, they arranged so I never missed one of Kate's anything at school. So that's why I say Santa Barbara grew me, and General Hospital grew my daughter. So
and Jen, can you sort of speak to this as a viewer? Like what you know, what did you make looking into that window of this is what it is to be a grown up and a lady?
I feel like I should give my bona fides and say some of my earliest memories are watching Guiding Light and then Days of Our Lives with my grandpa on the couch. And then I think I was probably 12 when I started watching General Hospital. and then All My Children, One Life to Live. Santa Barbara was also in there. In Another World. I watched a lot.
Watch them all.
Homesick.
Another World.
Another World was probably
that's my
Santa Barbara
hurricane.
and Another World were like my top shows.
Yeah, Another World was a good show.
Another World was good. I was rewatching some episodes recently. Damn, this show was good. And it was interesting because I think not only was it a view into womanhood, I think my parents immigrated from Korea, and so it was my parents and my grandparents and me and my little sister, and so I think a lot of it was like learning about, in some ways, like American culture too. I used to watch it like every day, like a block, because Santa Barbara was on at 11, and then like and I think that it was so juicy and intriguing to me. You saw women, I don't know, there would be like the temptress, and then there's like the ingenue, and one of the most compelling things I think though is that women stay sexual and attractive and desired through people. I was watching on One Life to Live, Vicky was like 60 years old, do you know what I mean? And she was in obviously Erica Kane, but everybody felt like very viable. And it's weird now, even I'll pop back in once in a while, turn on the TV, I'm like, why does everyone still look the same as I remember? I'm like, how is that possible? So you guys all look the same. I don't, what is
hair, makeup, and lighting.
No, but you see people in movies and they don't look the same. You turn on a soap opera and everyone looks the same. 20 years later, people still look just as good.
And Jenny, when we're shooting a love scene, and by the way, I was 61 or something, and with Julexis was like voted the hottest couple. And I'm like, we're ARP members, and we're like the hottest couple daytime. It was so shocking to me. But what I will tell you is, while we're shooting those love scenes, we know the directors very well, and I'm like, Bill, if you shoot the fat hanging off my arms, I will come. So trust me, we're protected.
But I'm saying the face still, it looks exactly the same. Is it because you would think maybe it's because incremental change, you don't notice when your family member older, you don't notice when people on soaps get older because you see them every day. But then coming in 20 years later, I'm like, Sunny still looks like Sunny. Everyone looks.
And everyone's still having the exact same relationship problems they were having 25 years ago.
So that's, talk about real life.
That's so true, isn't it?
We never learn. Well, we're constantly just trying to work out whatever it was that happened in our childhood, same as anyone.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I first got here, because I also learned about American culture on the show, because I was from England. I mean, I still am from England, but I found it really difficult to be romantic. I found the whole concept like to be played up, like roses and things and candlelight. And, I was I grew up like a punk, and I was a dancer, and it was uncomfortable for me. And so I kind of found this, I was really lucky because we had this incredible executive producer, Gloria Monti, who was just, she just went against the grain. And she started to write my characters like this tough, kind of just tough agent who was raising a daughter, Robin and Kimberly. And I loved that juxtaposition. That made me feel comfortable. I was able to hang with the boys and be tough and fight and do all that. And yet I was maternal. So that for me became a woman. That sort of, that became a woman I could be comfortable with. Somebody who wasn't, an ingenue, wasn't, cute, and so that kind of worked for me. And when I was starting out,
Yeah, actually, I wanted to really ask you three about that, because you play what I think are like three unusually independent, powerful feminist women. I mean, I think I'm exactly the same age that Robin Scorpio is, I think. And so growing up, I was, I think she wanted to go to Yale or something. Like growing up, I was very much like, I'm all about Robin Scorpio. And once I was introduced to Alexis, then I was like, well, now I understand what a feminist looks like. And now like, that's who I want to be. And I think people who don't watch soap operas wouldn't necessarily realize that there are these sort of powerful independent feminist icons on them. And I'm curious whether you had a role in shaping those parts, or whether in some sense, like Finola, as you suggested, maybe the parts were shaped around your personalities, or is it just, are you sort of passive passengers on the vehicle that is your character?
Robin,
I think it's something really quick. I feel like soaps are unfairly judged as negatively stereotyping women. I think that you're totally right on. I think unless you actually are engaged with soaps, you wouldn't necessarily know that. But, you know, like you just said, all of our characters are really strong. I mean, I hate that word strong. Sorry, I'll think of a better one. But like really complicated, flawed, beautiful, passionate, Anna, for example, like I think you were gone out of Robin's life for years.
Yeah.
And then she came back and her daughter loved her. And it's like men have done that forever and ever. They've gone away and they've come back and they've been accepted. But you know, women have not. That's been like a big no-no that hasn't been understood. And yet Anna Devane was able to do that, and we could understand her because your character was, developed in front of our eyes. And that was really powerful to me.
I'm going to say something controversial, shockingly enough.
Go ahead.
We're all talking about things that we portrayed as women on soaps a while ago. Robin, you asked, do we have say in this? I think there is a component of, they pick up on our personalities and our tone, and they write accordingly. Mm-hmm. But I think, and I don't know if it's due to the time, I don't know if it's due to the limitations in budget. There are many limitations, but in the past, there was more concentration on character and more commitment to it, and more, you were given more reasons why we as women do what we do. Mm-hmm. I feel a little cheated as of late in the last several years, really. Not cheated in how lucky I am to have this job, but in terms of, maybe it's on General Hospital, because the show centers around mobsters that they've made heroes. So the morality is already skewed. So then the women then are forced to have to orbit around them in ways that sometimes make them a trophy wife or a bitch. And it has become a little less nuanced than I would prefer, and less realized. So I'm feeling there's less time for us to contribute or to go, hey, can I make a suggestion? And and as a result, I think sometimes it depends, again, the writing, when the writers change and things change. But I think that the women could use a dose of dimensional, I can't think of the word, broadening. On the show that I love and that I'd love to be on. So that's how I feel about currently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, because I think that the effect, I mean, it's so interesting for me to listen to Robin and Jen talk about your engagement and involvement watching soaps. And I think we have such an important contribution to make. And I value that, and I want to be a part of that. And I think all three of us certainly have in our medium done very well at that. I would like to continue it, and I think it could use like a bigger dose of it right now.
I remember back in the day, there was a new executive producer came on, and I started to notice things sliding with my character.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a room one day with 2 or 3 of the guys that I usually played with, and I didn't have very much to say. And I was like, wait a minute. So I went upstairs to the executive producer, and I knocked on the door and I said, can I come talk to you real fast? And I was like, you can't do this, because the women that are watching an empowered woman. They're watching somebody who's a single mother and who has a place at the table. And this is back in the like very late 80s, when we didn't even have a piece of the pie at all. And so I just was like, you have to write, this. You just have to, because it's giving women, that they're really enjoying this kind of repartee that this character has with the men that she works one-on-one with. And he heard me, and he like really heard me. And he was like, okay. And, I was super young, but I just kind of noticed, and it was just a feeling, and he remedied it. He did. He heard and saw, what it was, and so
it was important in all of our growing up on soaps for us to be to speak up for ourselves, and for me, I always it was more for an audience because I was so conscious of them, and I felt like I had some responsibility to be truthful and to be real for them. And so you bump up against a lot when you do that, but you have to be brave to do it because we're all still standing. So it's a tricky balance, and I've failed more than I've succeeded in that.
Has there ever been a time for you guys when you felt the storyline was off, or you felt something was off with what your character was doing, but the audience was loving it, and so there was resistance to sort of make a change, or would you usually find it kind of aligned with how you felt and with how the audience felt?
I feel typically aligned with the audience. I just, that connection's always been very important to me because I value the viewers. I really, really do. I'm not just saying that. I really actually do. And I think they're smart. And so, but I know that probably, Finola, I think you nodded that maybe you had that experience. I mean, it does happen for sure. And by the way, I'm very often wrong. And so that happens too, where I think I got it, know what I'm doing, and I don't. And you live and learn as you grow up. But for the most part, I think I'm pretty in tune with what they're saying.
What about you, Kimberly?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember one time there was like a couple of years where they were doing this sort of, is it called iteration, when you or literation, where and they were calling every character, and then you had like a nickname. I don't know. It was like really weird. It was a certain writer that was around, and I was like Nosin Robin. And I was like, what does that even mean? But anyway, they wanted my character to be very like all-knowing and into everybody's business, and it was just this really like sharp character turn, and it was like that was all that was about. And I think I was arguing a lot with Carly, I think I remember, and they wanted me to do this scene where I slapped Carly, and there was just a lot of slapping. There's just a lot of bitch slapping, and
no, who does that in real life?
I just wasn't down. I was like, okay, you guys, I'm from Whittier, okay? Like, if you're gonna get in a fight, like, you're gonna use your fist. Right. So anyway, I proposed to the director. I don't know why, but I was uncomfortable with just it. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to hit her, I want to punch her. I want to punch her in the face. Can we do that? If I'm going to be this nosy, blah, 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 then can I at least have, you know, a punch? So they agreed to let me do it. So yeah, I started turning, but that was the only time I was like, I don't understand. Why is Robin so like Miss Know-It-All? It's just weird.
I'm really curious, like the way you talk about sort of feeling a responsibility when it comes to advocating for these storylines, are you feeling a responsibility to the viewers in terms of their pleasure? Are you feeling a responsibility to the character to defend what you think of as what the character would do? Is it a responsibility to sort of like represent a kind of woman on screen? Like, who is the responsibility for?
I think it's all of those things, Robin. I think it's all of those things, but I also think that I obviously want to come across, I feel like there's certain characters like Finola's and mine and Kimberly's, we have a moral compass. Mm-hmm. And we're deeply flawed, and that's good. You want to make lots of mistakes. But we have a moral compass. So, and we're more like the audience, the people like you and Jen, you know, so yes, there is a representation that we're representing you. And so there's a responsibility for that, also to be truthful and also to have you believe us and have it be complicated and not simplistic and not undervalued. So, yeah.
And also you end up learning a lot about your own fans, like people who like your character. Like you get to really interact, and certainly now with social media, it's just instantaneous and it's great fun. And when you're a badass, like they really want you to be a badass, because it like everybody's sitting in their car and they're commuting and they're this, and you know they go to work, or well, not now, but you know, when we did do that. And sometimes just seeing somebody be a badass, like, you know, Punch Carly, or like for me, if I have to fight a guy, I really work hard to, like, you know, I'm 5'5", and I try to make it look like I could possibly take him down.
There's nobody, you could kick anybody's ass in that studio. You have moves like, you know, I've never not believed that you could take some guy down.
Oh, same. You like catapulted down from the ceiling, I think, on a rope and like landed like a spider.
It's very hot. I mean, it's totally believable. Totally believable. And great. Okay. And so I saw Robin shaking her head. Yes, yes, yes. So I'm not trying to make this so real that it loses its entertainment value, because you guys probably like it when we bitch slap, or you know, it's probably somewhat entertaining. I hate using that word, I just did, but so I don't mean to, I'm not taking the fun out of it. I'm just sometimes.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And like like you said, Nancy, about our characters being deeply flawed. And I really love that. I mean, and sometimes like my character will dip and go into sort of chaos a little bit, like, you know, with grief or something. And I know I'm safe there, even though, because I know I'll come out of it. You know, I know they'll pull the character out. And so I sort of allow, you know, I allow that to, I'm okay with that, because the writer, it's an incredible relationship that we have with writers, because we're like daily, and it's just extraordinary. And you start, you start seeing these patterns, and they'll allow you to go down and hit the bottom, and then you'll suddenly come up, and there'll be this, you know, I'm going to take revenge, I'm taking back my life. And it's great. So you just have to trust that. And I tend to trust more what's coming in from the writer, and I wait it out, because I know that we can always save Anna, you know, we can always, because there, like you say, there's integrity with the characters, and we're lucky that we have that.
I mean, the thing that I think people don't realize, and I had to really, really take this in, because it was such a different playground on Santa Barbara than it is on General Hospital, which is in the system change because of the budget and the time and the pace, that if Santa Barbara, you'd walk in without it, and everyone would go, what are we going to do today? Let's play. It was like a giant rep company, and now there's no time for that. So Finola's absolutely right. There is a level of trust that you hop on and you just give it all you got. And I'm curious to know if you see it, since you've watched it for so long. I want to know what you both think. Is it okay if I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
If you see a difference in how soaps may have been, say, 15, 20 years ago to how they are now. I'm so curious. I see a difference in the quality level or the exploration of character level.
Or representation of women.
I don't know, Jenny, what do you think? I mean, for General Hospital, I feel like the arc toward a show that is about men has been sort of an evident bend. Like you say, it's a show about mobsters. I mean, it was a show about it was a show about a hospital, and then it became a show about mobsters. And I don't know. I've always thought it was kind of interesting that most soaps seem to center around like a matriarch that heads a family and the women of the family. And there's General Hospital, at least when during the period I was watching it most regularly, seemed to be heading ever closer towards centering around a man and his family and sort of the men that encircled that with the women kind of orbiting around them. But that feels like too narrow an answer to be able to say, like, I see a grand change across the board. But I'm interested that you see the same thing. I don't know, Jenny.
I think that was a perfect answer.
I think that's right. I think what I was always drawn to were when soap operas were centered around a family. Like there was a couple of like the main families, like Santa Barbara, the Capwells. You knew that the action was kind of around the family. It was more, I guess, domestic. But then General Hospital, it was like the Quartermain was sort of like the main family, and then they had the sort of offshoots. And that was most interesting to me. I would say like I'm less interested in, I was when it was a sprinkling, like I was very into like Brenda, Sunny back in the day, Stone, Robin, I like that. Like
Brenda and Sunny was a great love story.
Great love story. That was like
very dramatic.
The other thing other than that, yes, very dramatic. I was crying a lot. You know what I mean? It was like a very emotional, and I think I only dip in every once in a while now with soaps because there's so much less of them too. But maybe I feel like less sort of that pathos, that like purge of emotions where you're gonna sit and like cry for a while when you watch it.
Well, I think it's also really interesting I'm really interested in the ways that are the reasons we watch soaps and sort of the role soap operas play in like the viewing culture has shifted over the years in a way that I'm sure you guys are like very palpably aware of. But the like plot driven part of the story like feels like it was never the most relevant part. Like the reason you were invested in soaps was sort of the slow burn romance. I personally have a very vivid memory of, I feel like it was either summer vacation or Christmas break where my best friend from high school and I just sort of sat waiting, like, will Alexis and Sunny kiss? How long? Will they kiss before New Year's? Like, will they kiss before Easter? When's it going to happen? And I think
I was watching then too.
I was very into that too. Although I'm devoted to Alexis and Ned.
Alexis and Ned, yeah. But like that's the thing. It's about the relationships. It's about the daily. It's about the sort of daily changes. It's about the fact that you can dip in 20 years later and see the payoff to a story you watched when you were a kid. Like that's all the stuff that you can't get from any other. I have like a very impassioned rant about how you can't get that kind of daily and ongoing narrative from any other art form. But but serialized drama, which used to be unique to soap operas, now you get from every television show, right? Like serialized drama is
that's right. Yeah.
So I feel like
But generationally,
Yeah.
it's the comfort
Yeah.
of being with these people and this story, ongoing story for, this is 54
Yeah.
years now.
Well, and the history. Right? I mean, literally, I don't mean to keep invoking my friend here, although I'm sure she's squealing in her house. But I mean, literally, we went on a vacation together a couple years ago. We watched General Hospital together because that's what we do. And we happened to catch the payoff to a story that got set up when we were in high school. Like what was literally, it?
What was it?
It was the reveal. It was the reveal that like Sonny had basically stolen Michael. It was like
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
It was, we had been waiting. You can't get that anywhere else. And I guess I sort of wonder whether soap operas maybe are trying to chase the serialized drama thing, like trying to compete with like, no, we can be exciting and plot driven too, at the expense of the thing people actually want to watch soap operas for, which is, I've known these characters for 30 years. I want to see what happens to them tomorrow.
It's like me saying, I kind of want to do what Meryl Streep's doing. Well, that's not going to happen because that's a whole different thing. To own what we are and just be that. And we don't have to do any more. We don't have to go chasing plots and things. And look, we work under so many limitations, and the writers, my God, there's no harder writing job ever. There's just not.
Yeah.
What they have to go through, there's so many things they have to think of. It's so hard. But if I would love their jobs to just be made easier and go and have not the pace of the day go slower, because it can't, but have the pace of the story and the development and the character, and let them all just breathe into this a little more like they used to, and everyone could just kind of flow a little more and go back to kind of what was thrilling you when you were watching it.
I will agree, actually. I think that the slow burn has sort of been lost, and in some instances we've been trying to chase that like commercial break feeling, but at the end of every scene. And I remember specifically being told by a director, like, no, we need you to cry in this scene. I was like, but I have 5 more scenes that I'm crying in. And he's like, but I need you to cry in this scene and the next scene and the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. I was like, okay, because why? And I think his explanation was like, well, someone might just tune in who hasn't watched the first half of the episode. And I was like, hold up. That's not how soap operas work. You sit down and you watch the whole episode. That's how it works. And people that love these characters have been watching them for years and years and years and years and years. You're not going to like get a new audience member by, some girls crying. It doesn't work.
I know.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I
was right before the act break. Yeah. It's
Why?
not. Yeah. Yeah. That would have been great. I would have really liked to hear that explanation.
It was a long time ago, but still, I was like, what? I can't choose which line I cry on? Sorry.
I was gonna say that I remember when Boyhood came out and people were really so moved by the fact that you got to see this boy grow up on screen, and that was like what was the draw to it. And then watching Logan, did you guys see Logan? The most recent, it was like Wolverine's like final.
Wolverine, yeah.
Yes.
I watched that movie. I love that movie. I think it was the best movie that came out like a few years ago, and cried my eyes out because there's something about seeing Hugh Jackman, the superhero Wolverine, and Hugh Jackman older, and his body was sort of broken, and then you see Patrick Stewart in the wheelchair, and you saw that 20 years ago when the movies first came out, like 25 years ago, and he was in a wheelchair then, but now you see them as like people who have aged before your eyes, and there's something really moving about that, about being on the long journey, that adds to, I think, the depth of feeling, because you're watching the two actors in a scene with each other, and like, wow, they're a lot older, and there's so like extra emotion to it. And I think that's what soap operas do too, is that you get to like, you feel such a affection for, and like a kinship and intimacy with characters you've watched for 30 years that feel like real people. in a way now, I think reality TV has sort of taken that in a way, because people feel like, oh, those are actual real people that you see, and it's serialized and it's on during the day. You can turn on Bravo whenever and see random people, in a way that I think before, soap operas were the only ones to populate that space during the day, where you just turn it on and like your homework or like clean up the house, and they're just with you.
Yeah, you know, that's a fabulous that's a fabulous thing you've just said there, Jenny, because like I get to work with a guy that I worked with when I first started. Like Tristan Rogers, he plays Scorpio. And you know, we're just so much older now, and it's so funny because he really leans into this old crotchety guy. He just leans into it, and it's so right. And it's so fun to play off, because we literally are like old married people that have known. I've known him 40 years. I mean, 39 years or whatever it is, and you know, sometimes he doesn't hit his mark, and I'm like, Tris, stand here, and you know, and then we get to work together, and I have the same tone, and I'm like, and it's just funny, and he's, you know, he gets irritated with me, and it's funny, because it's like going to your in-laws and sort of being like, oh my God, you know, but yeah, I get that. It's kind of
beautiful.
fun.
It's like a grand experiment that you don't get anywhere else, that you get to see the same people acting these parts for 30 years. I mean, like, how do you get that experience? It's so rare and special.
We all know each other in like a really intimate way. Like, I know Finola and Nancy, you know, like they're my family.
Yeah.
I know them better than some of the members of my family.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's such a gift. I find it so interesting that you compared it to Boyhood, because that's exactly what it is. It's just with hundreds of people.
Revolving doors of people coming in. I wanted to also say that, Robin, I really look forward to reading your book. And Jen, I read your article in Elle. So I wanted to just learn a little about you. So well done. I can't wait to watch. I'm going to binge on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
So much, Nancy.
It's very binge worthy. I just want to, before we wrap up, I want to get in some questions from our viewers. Somebody has asked whether you think the portrayal of, she says, mature sexuality on screen has changed over the years, or if it's always been that way, which I'm sort of curious about as well. I feel like this kind of older generation of women is getting much more action now, but maybe I wasn't paying attention when I was a kid.
Finola, I think that's true, because when I grew up watching General Hospital, believe me, I'm older than everyone here, but I watched General Hospital growing up. And I look at Rachel when she was younger than me, and I thought, she's a grandma. And so there was this sort of different look of, you know, the way seniors looked and acted, and the lines, they were always the wise sage. And now Finola and I play the most fucked up with lunatics. Crazy. And like I said, you know, I'm wearing Spanx. Finola doesn't have to. I'm wearing like a Spank sexy thing, whatever. No matter what I'm wearing, you take my clothes off, I'm always in that, because I won't be in anything else. And luckily I was with a guy who's also an art member, but he's so
buff.
Yeah, he works out every minute of his life.
And all I have to jump off.
I have to jump off, girls. I do, ladies. Yes. Thank you so much. This is so fabulous and so interesting.
Thank you. Enjoy your next Zoom.
You can answer.
I love you.
Great. Love you. Love you. Bye. Bye. See you next week now.
Bye. Anyway, who's sexier than Finola? You know, so.
Seriously.
You know, and I was with somebody who was really hot, so that would throw me up against the wall, so it made me look hot. And so, yes, it's a big difference.
You're hot. Stop it.
Whatever.
God.
But still, yes, I think it's awesome. You know, I'm having, you know, I met the man of my dreams 4 years ago. Never I mean, literally the guy that I wrote, every detail when I was 19 about what I wanted, he showed up 45 years too late, or I can't do the math, but I'm old. And, without telling tales out of school, I'm 64 years old. I'm having more sex than I've ever had in my life, and good sex. There. That should be happening on soap operas too, right, Kimberly?
Congratulations.
Thank you, honey. Thank you. I know so many people are so happy for me. I'm a beacon of hope.
You're giving me hope right now.
A beacon of hope, and it should be portrayed that way on all forms of media. Senior sex is awesome.
Somebody else says that she thinks of soaps as something that the kind of story that pits female characters against each other, and that's always struck her as somewhat misogynistic, and is wondering what we think of that.
Hit it, Kimberly.
Oh, well, there's a lot of misogynistic things about soaps, but I think that one of the most misogynistic things is what I found out is behind the scenes, women actors were getting paid less than half of their male counterparts for years and years and years and years and years. Right. So I had a conversation once. Oh, I can't say it. I wanted to say it so bad, but I can't. I'm going to stay on topic. Yes, there's a lot of stereotyping. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of forgiving men for things that we wouldn't forgive women for, a lot of cheating that men do, not so much women that don't get, it definitely skews one way, which I find interesting. And then I also have heard that, it's an 80% female, genre, meaning, not a lot of men watch it. I don't know if that's true. I've had several men come up to me and say, I watch it, I think they're just not as vocal about it, for whatever reason.
I mean, I think the reason, it seems pretty obvious to me, right? I think it seems obvious to me, right, that this is a genre branded as for women, and thus it is easily dismissed, and a thing that men should feel shameful about watching. And this is maybe I'm bringing my baggage of writing in a traditionally female sort of young adult genre for 15 years and navigating the questions of who's it for and all of that. But it feels to me like soap operas are not taken seriously because they're for women.
I think just generally, as we know from just looking at the world and our country that we're in, who's running it right now, that this man was elected because we live in a misogynistic culture, a deeply misogynistic culture, which I think really has not been addressed even nearly enough. And so it just reflects itself everywhere on soap operas, yes. Why do people watch the Real Housewife? Those women are paid millions of dollars to behave badly as themselves on television, and everybody watches it. Now, are they watching it because they think it's fun to watch women treat each other that way, or are they watching it because they can't believe somebody would do something like that? I think it's both those elements. But so yeah, I think there's a lot of misogyny on daytime and nighttime and all over the place that really needs to be reckoned with.
It's everywhere, but soaps have also been a really good place for women to tell their stories. I had postpartum depression on the show. That's important. I honestly wish I had done a better job.
You've had a lot of good stories.
I've been really lucky.
And that's due to you too, because they know that Kimberly can handle it. So, they gave her some very, very thoughtful stories that she really did really well.
Lisa Niles tried to inject my husband with my HIV infected blood. So, we do crazy shit. I had an alien.
That wasn't one of them.
It's crazy, and it shouldn't be dismissed like, oh, it's just a soap opera. That's not fair. You know, we do need to take responsibility for the content that we are putting out there, for sure.
Yeah.
Let me make a radical turn from the depressing realities of our misogynistic patriarchy to a cheerier note. We should probably wrap up in a few minutes. So to a cheerier note to end on, somebody has asked the question, have you discovered anything new in quarantine? And I think Nancy, I'm especially curious, given that I assume you've been sort of working and playing this part most days of the week for a very long time. I'm curious for all of you, but what has it been like just being at home and not doing it? I think for viewers, the idea that soap operas have just stopped, the one thing that's never supposed to stop, just stopped this season.
It's really true. I mean, 34 years I've been doing this almost nonstop. And my fiance had a health challenge. So that was what I did up until about 6 weeks ago. So that it was, in a way, there's nothing good about this pandemic, but it was helpful for me not to have a distraction or something else that I needed to focus on, because this demanded all of my attention. But aside from that, I've been, I'm on Twitter. I feel like I have to be the town crier. And just say, everybody, did you see this? Pay attention, don't lose focus. So I sort of use my soapbox literally. So I do that. And then I did these things with called this COVID support group thing, where I got Jane Elliott and Kim Zimmer, just because they're friends and were available. And I started writing these funny little weird things and producing that, putting those up. And I did an interview with Tony Geary that really got lots of views. I don't know if Kimberly saw it yet, but
I need to see it.
Yeah, he was awesome. It was a really good interview. And so I've been coming up with ways to be creative and do stuff, but this made me get a window into what retirement looks like, and I'm not retiring. So, I mean, that, they'll have to throw me out, and they may, but I'm not leaving. So, I like having a place to go where I don't have to think about that I have to be in charge of creating something. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this thing here has been directing, and she's wonderful what she has accomplished in her life. What she accomplished is just, I am so proud and inspired by Kimberly.
Nance.
No, I really am. And very inspired by you women. I mean, God, and this is why I fight to try to keep Alexis, looking like you guys.
Yeah.
Because it's you guys that are looking at me going, why are you doing that? And why aren't you doing this? So there you go.
We appreciate it. We strongly appreciate it. Although what we've run out of time for, mercifully, is all of the ways that soap operas have both warped and revealed my warped romantic instincts, because I am actually an Alexis and Rick forever kind of girl, and
I love
there's something very wrong with me for that.
I disagree. I think that was a really good grown up kind of interesting.
It was good banter. Yeah, it was great banter.
No, Alexis and Ned. That was good banter.
All the men that I've loved. I have very good partners. I'm not complaining. She's
I feel like this could very quickly devolve into something. So I will wrap it up. But I just want to thank you guys so much. This has been fascinating and so satisfying, and I could talk to you about this forever. So
I so appreciated being asked to do it. It's lovely to talk to such bright young women.
Yes, and thank you for writing this book. Thank you for taking the time to really dissect these roles that we play as women. It's so important. I really appreciate it.
And can I get a pre-read of the book?
Yes. Yes. Everybody else out there should buy a copy and buy a copy of Penny's book. But yeah, everybody watching, thank you so much. And you guys, thank you so much. And please stay safe and stay healthy and all of those things. And have a lovely night.
Lovely meeting you guys. Thank you.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Bye, Robin. Bye.
I'll call you later, Kimberly.
Okay.